It is the first day of Hot Rod Power Tour, and I've spent a good amount of time the last couple weeks prepping Elsworth to be ready for our cruise. For those of you who are new here, this is Elsworth, my 1975 Ford F150. This was my grandfather's work truck. It sat for a little over 26 years. I spent 2 years getting it to look like you see it here, and this is going to be our first major road trip this week. I say us, me and my dad are going to be taking this truck from Joliet, Illinois, all the way to Tulsa, Oklahoma, as long as we don't break down. Now, for those of you who are not new here and you've seen this truck before, I've got a handful of things that I upgraded in the last week. I want to take you through all that now before we hit the road. Now, in typical YouTube and road trip fashion, the weather's not been cooperating. It's been raining off and on today, so you notice the truck's a little bit wet. I've wiped it down 3 times and I eventually gave up because every time I wipe it down, it starts to rain again. Now, the first thing you might notice, if you've only seen my revival video, this topper right here will be new to you. This is the original topper my grandfather had on this truck when he was using it as a work truck, as a contractor. Now, a couple weeks ago, my dad, my brother, and I, we cut this topper down to match the custom bed length of this pickup truck. This was the original topper, but again, when I redid this truck, I made this into a short bed. It was a long bed, and it's a bit of a custom length because we took the 16 inches out of the front of the bed and then an additional 4 off the back because I don't like the way the Ford beds hang out past the back wheels. So we custom fit this topper. I think it turned out incredible. I've never seen a topper that looks quite exactly like this one. Usually they got the big bubble square windows with the real like blue tint on them. This just turned out so good. It matches the truck so nicely. I'm super happy with it. And in addition to that, we've got the 3 windows that open on this, so we can get access to the bed of the truck from anywhere we need to. Now, we are just about packed up and ready to go. And I'll run you through quickly what we've got here. I've kind of tried to bring the minimal amount of things that I think we might need, but also not leave anything behind that may keep us from returning home. First things first, we got a little vintage cooler up there. You can see that Coleman cooler. I paint matched that to the truck, and then in addition to that, you can see I added on the cutoff dent side trim from when I shortened down the bed. The length of trim needed was the exact fit for that Coleman cooler, and that turned out pretty darn neat, if I may say so. Got a full-size spare for the front. Now I have staggered tire sizes on this truck. These are US Mags Riddler wheels, 18x8s in the front, 18x9.5s in the back. 245 45 18s on the front, 295 40 18s on the back. Tucked behind those US Mags are Willwood disc brakes, 6 piston in the front and 4 in the back. Now, this is my emergency roadside kit here. This has got all of our parts, fluids, any little knickknacks that we think we might need for the road. I'm going to quickly walk you guys through what I've got here, and hopefully it's going to cover any repairs that might come up along the way. First off, we just got some shop rags here. I've got a spare valve cover gasket just in case. Down here, you can see I've got a couple jack stands that fit in here. I've got a universal set of cut-to-fit ignition wires. That's just in case of emergency, if we burn up a plug or something. You guys will notice when we go around to the front of the truck that all of my spark plug wires are custom cut to length. So I've got this kit here. It should cover us under any circumstance that we run into. I've got extra lower and upper radiator hoses. In here's all my power tools. We've got an impact, we've got drills, we've got a few other odds and ends in there. Now, I'm not going to open this little box up down here, but it's got extra hoses, hose clamps, relays, extra sensors, all kinds of little knick-knack parts that we may run into, that we may need along the road. In addition to that, I've got this wire terminal kit from Harbor Freight, as well as this miscellaneous nuts and bolts kit from Harbor Freight. Now, you might think this is silly, but I put one of these in almost every one of my vehicles, and it's come in handy more times than I would care to admit. I've got some alligator clips here just in case, like, these probably really aren't necessary, but I had them laying around for another project, and I thought, you know what, let's throw them in just in case we have an emergency wiring thing that we need to do. We'll have those with us. I've got an extra set of spark plugs down there, and then I've got all the fluids that I might need. I've got engine oil, brake fluid, transmission fluid, gear oil, brake clean. I've got some penetrating oil, and I've also got a jug of antifreeze in there. So this tote here really should be a lifesaver, and I'm hoping that we're not even going to need it. But we've got all this kind of essentials packed in here, and I like that it all fits in one nice tote here, so we're not cluttering up the whole entire bed with all these little individual parts and pieces laying around and losing stuff. Let me know down in the comments, guys. This is my first power tour. Let me know what I'm forgetting, if there's anything critical that I've not put in here that you think I definitely need. Now inside my little toolbox here, I just have basic hand tools. I've got mechanics wire, I've got zip ties, I've got all kinds of stuff in there. Just the basic hand tools and little odds and ends, accessories, electrical tape, all that kind of stuff is in my toolbox there. We are going to bring a little jerry can, and you may notice even with the topper, we've got a little bit of water coming into the bed here. It rained all last night, so it's really a minimal amount of water, but because of that, because I know the bed floor is not completely sealed, we've got all kinds of little pinholes and things down in the floor. We've got this tool waterproof roof bag. Now this is what we're going to put all of our clothes, anything that could get damaged by water that we don't want damaged, all that stuff's going to go in here, and it's just going to stay right at the back of the truck, and we'll be able to pull this stuff out of the bag and bring it right into the hotel room with us. And then the last couple things I've got up at the front, you see that Hercules bin there, is just a bunch of detailing tools, some microfibers, spray wax, aluminum polish, glass cleaner, that type of stuff. We did throw a moving blanket on top there. That's really for security purposes, just in case, you know, you're walking past this thing at night and you go, ooh, that's a shiny looking rim there. That'd be nice to have. We're gonna try and take some of that temptation away by throwing this moving blanket over the top of everything at night. It's black. Hopefully it will deter would-be thieves, at least from looking in, seeing something they like and grabbing it. The other thing I didn't point out here is I did close up the bed floor. For anybody who's paying attention and has seen this truck throughout the build phases would know that I lowered this bed down onto the frame, and I actually had to cut some of the floor out to clear the frame rail coming up through the bed floor because of some issues I had when I shortened the chassis. Now, we could have resolved that by raising both the bed and the cab up, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep everything as low as possible, so we opted to body drop everything versus raising up with larger body mounts. So that left a couple open spots where the floor was. I kept the original cutouts, and I was able to get those formed and welded into place over the top of the frame rails. I arched those pieces and got them to fit in the truck. It makes for a nice semi-seamless look because the bed floor in this thing is whipped. It was a true work truck. With everything in here, you can't really see it, but this floor is wavy as it gets, and so having these kind of arched up and covering over the frame rails, really you don't even notice it at all. Coming inside the truck, most of what we've changed you're not even really going to notice right off the bat. The first thing is we've got a brand new windshield in this truck. Now Jeff and I attempted to reinstall the old windshield with a new seal, and we fought that thing for hours upon hours, and ultimately when we went to finally install the windshield with the trim and the seal all on the windshield, which is what we fought for so long, we ended up cracking that windshield. So I had a professional replace this one. Best money I ever spent. I would not recommend doing that yourself. It can be done, but you know, the trim on these trucks, and you can see even with the professional having done it, the trim starting to come away from the windshield. It is just a nightmare on these old Ford trucks, so definitely would advise going the professional route there. In addition to that, I've got a new wing window over there, couple other odds and ends, new door seals, all kinds of new stuff on the inside here. But other than that, it's pretty much like it has looked for the last half a year or so. This is like a factory OEM style seat cover from LMC Truck. I've got this generic console I picked up off of Amazon. Just a little saddle blanket just in case. We won't need it on this trip, but it's nice to have in case it gets cold because we've got no heat, no AC in this truck at the moment. Eventually we're going to have both of those things, but right now we have neither. All the dash trim in this truck came from AMD. Really happy with those pieces. Inside the glove box here, you'll see we've got our custom setup for the Holley EFI system right there. That just mounts that little LCD screen out of the way, and I've got it set up to where I can actually pull that out. It's Velcroed on if I need it. Moving across the truck here, we've got a Flaming River steering column, aftermarket Ford steering wheel there, Dakota digital gauges, and believe it or not, these are the original door panels that were in the truck. We also did a custom headliner in this truck. It's a little dark in here, so it's kind of hard to see, but it is a wood grain. There it is. It's a wood grain meant to match the wood grain on the dash trim here. Now, aside from the topper, probably the biggest visual difference of this truck lies underneath this hood. Let's pop the hood open and let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now, if you've watched any of the recent videos on this truck, you'll know I was fighting some valve spring issues. Now, I've got those resolved to the best of my ability. We still are getting a little bit of valve float above 5,200, but I just really don't think this stock-ish 390 is really meant to be pushed above 5,200. It's mostly a stock valve train. It's very heavy, and so the conclusion I've come to is that, you know, we're just kind of reaching the limits of what the motor can do at that point. So what I've done is I've set the rev limiter on this to hit before we actually get to valve float on the engine. Now, this is a FE 390 engine. It was not the original engine in the truck. I am saving the original. I have the original block, and I am saving that for a 445 cubic inch stroker build. But this one, we got off of Facebook Marketplace. We did a budget rebuild on this engine. It's got about 700 miles on it now. We do have a little bit of blow-by in this thing, and that is unfortunate. I'm hoping maybe the rings will seal up just a little bit better. To help resolve that for our trip, I have installed an oil catch can, and we've tested that out. It is working pretty well so far. Now, this engine is basically a stock rebuilt bottom end. It was sold to me as a 360, and I discovered it actually had a 390 crank in it. So I went and had the crank turned, and then I put all new bearings throughout this motor. Cam bearings, crank bearings, rod bearings, everything all new in the bottom end of this motor. New piston rings. We kept the original pistons and rods that were in this engine. They looked halfway decent, and this engine had been bored 30 over already. We did a simple garage hone on this, and I did a bunch of some of the oiling modifications that are common to these Ford FEs. It's got a comp 268H cam. It's fairly mild, but in addition to that, we've got the CVF accessory drive. That's been okay so far. Not super wowed by it. There were a few things that I had to modify right from purchase, but it seems to be working okay so far. The belts aren't rubbing weird or anything like that. You can see it's got some Chinesium eBay headers on there. Those have actually worked out extremely well so far, knock on wood. In addition to that, it's got Holley Hyperspark ignition system. You can see the Sniper distributor there, as well as the coil back on the firewall. And then in addition to that, it's got the Holley Terminator Stealth throttle body EFI system. All of the electronics and everything are mounted up under the dash. We try to keep this as clean as possible under here and keep this engine bay looking somewhat fresh. I also opted for a custom Hydro Boost system. I built this system, pieced it together myself. This is a Hydro Boost out of early 2000s Super Duty pickup truck. I made all the custom bracketry myself, pieced everything together. There's a bare proportioning valve immediately underneath the Hydro Boost system here. We ran all braided AN lines for everything. You can see our Hydro Boost and power steering lines coming down here. We've got the step down regulator for the Hydro Boost system so we don't blow out the seals on the steering rack. Now, the devil's in the finer details, and trying to keep all the wiring and hoses routed really nice was a bit of a challenge, and it does put some of those hoses and wires in close proximity to some things that may be able to burn or melt them. So to top everything off, we went with some heat shield products, protective wrap, anywhere that I thought we needed to clean up some of the hoses and wires and give them a nice protective layer. Now, anybody who's been following along has been screaming at me, and they've noticed the major difference that we've done here, which is we've replaced these valve covers. We had the original FE valve covers, the steel ones, and I was struggling with leaks on those things. Those had probably been on and off the engine half a dozen to maybe 10 times myself. Who knows in their lifespan. I think the flanges on those things were just getting really weak. They weren't really clamping down onto the gaskets in the way that I would have liked. In addition to that, I was using way too much RTV on the gaskets to try and get them to seal. So I contacted Anson Valve Covers. These are Anson valve covers. They're cast aluminum, and they did these awesome custom valve covers for me. As I said, Elsworth is the name of the truck. That was my grandfather's name. So we've got him memorialized right there on the valve covers, and how freaking sweet are those guys? They look awesome. I love the way this turned out, and the people at Anson were incredible. On the day I contacted them about ordering them, they got back to me immediately through email. We went back and forth, worked out the details, and they had these things out the door the next day. Incredible customer service, and I am super happy with the quality of the product. After I cut the frame down, we went with QA1 coilover suspension in both the front and rear of this truck. We're just now finally getting it dialed in, and I'm really happy with how the suspension performs. So in addition to all those changes, I did fluid changes, a full nut and bolt check, which was really good because we found a number of loose bolts. Got the whole chassis greased up. Like, this thing is ready to rock and roll. And with all that said, it is starting to rain again. So I'm gonna get the last few things packed up, and Dad and I are gonna hit the road tomorrow morning. Now today we're gonna head down to Joliet, check things out. Now if you happen to catch this video tomorrow, which is Tuesday, the first driving day of the power tour, please, you see me, you see the Cody Builds hat, you see this truck, please, please, please stop, say hi. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to talk about your ride or anything on this truck or the channel or anything at all. Just would love to say hi. All that said, guys, we're gonna get everything packed up. We're gonna hit the road, and I'm gonna try to get 1 or 2 videos out this week for you guys while we're on power tour. And for sure, we're gonna do a wrap-up video at the end of power tours. So for all you regulars, you know the deal. If you don't work on your projects, they will not work on themselves, and you won't be able to go on power tour next year. So get out in the garage, get building, and I'll see you on the next episode of Cody Builds.